I just did an entire video and my camera wasn't recording the entire time, so. Hello and welcome back to science class. My name is Elio. This is The Florist, where I sit on the floor and talk about science. This episode will be a science spotlight on maple syrup, so buckle in. So you've probably had maple syrup at some point in your life, but what is it and where does it come from? Well, it comes from the sap of a specific type of tree called the sugar maple, or Acer saccharum. All trees have two types of vascular tissues: the xylem, which transports water up from the roots to the leaves, and the phloem, which transports sugars and other photosynthates from the leaves down to the rest of the tree. One goes up, one goes down. It's an elevator system. So we have these two elevator-like vertical transport systems, but there's also a horizontal transport system in the form of ray cells, which are ribbon-like sheets of cells that grow radially from the center of the tree out to the bark. They grow perpendicular to the grain, and they're also sometimes called medullary rays or vascular rays. So with the combination of the xylem, the phloem, and the ray cells, the tree is able to send things where they need to go. The magic of maple syrup starts in the rays. The rays of most trees are filled with water, but maple rays are filled with gas. When a maple freezes, the gas in the rays condenses, which leaves a sugary frost that collects on the sides of cells. This freezing and condensing of gas creates a negative pressure gradient which sucks sap from the roots up to the rest of the tree, kind of like sucking through a straw. When the tree thaws, the gas expands and the sugars in the ray cells re-enter the transport systems. And because of the now high internal pressure, sap and therefore sugar is pushed around and out of the tree through weak points like a spile or a borehole. This is why sugar season happens in late winter, because the above freezing day temperatures and the below freezing night temperatures create the pressure gradient to get the sap moving. Once the sap is collected, it's a pretty simple yet very long process of boiling out the water. It's about a 40-to-1 ratio of sap to syrup, meaning if you collect 40 gallons of sap, you're left with 1 gallon of syrup at the end of the process. So after hours of boiling away water and Herculean patience, you get maple syrup. So that's pretty much the science behind it, but maple syrup also has a pretty interesting lore. Maple syrup was discovered by indigenous people in North America who used hot rocks to boil watery sap into syrup. When colonists arrived at Plymouth Rock in 1620, they learned how to make maple syrup from the Native Americans, who had been making it for at least a few decades and probably a lot longer. The syrup was a good source of sugar and became extremely economically important to early colonists. That is, until the prices of imported southern cane sugar dropped and it became the most dominant form of sugar on the market. In the late 1700s, however, Quakers started advocating for the consumption of maple sugar as a more ethical alternative to the slave labor-powered sugarcane plantations. Eventually, the idea sort of caught on, and it actually had a couple pretty famous people advocating for it, including, of all people, Thomas Jefferson, who was a slaver and a plantation owner. I literally cannot make this shit up. He is often credited with advocating for maple sugar over cane sugar as a more homegrown alternative, as if it discounts the fact that he literally owned other people and that all of his estates were operated by slave labor. Anyways, maple syrup has some pretty interesting science and history behind it, and I hope you think about it the next time you have pancakes. Bye! Have these two elevator-like vertical transport systems, but there's also a horizontal